Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation founded in 1711 along with the town of Needham. We are a proud LGBTQ welcoming congregation, climate justice seeking green sanctuary, and level 2 sanctuary supporting congregation for immigration justice. Whoever you are, whatever your background, wherever you're participating from, you are welcome here. My name is Tracy Zinner. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm speaking to you on Reproductive Justice Sunday as a woman, mother, obstetrician gynecologist, OWL instructor, and member of this congregation. Reproductive health, including quality sex education, information and access to dependable contraception, and choices regarding continuing or terminating a pregnancy, are vital to the health, quality of life, and dignity of all women. We are gathered as a spiritual community who supports the inherent worth and dignity of all people and who seeks justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. These ideals are directly tied to the concept of reproductive justice. Take a moment today and ask yourselves, how can your daughters, partners, mothers, colleagues, and community members be viewed as truly valuable and worthy as individuals if they are not given the right to choose whether and when they carry a pregnancy? How can we claim to support justice, equity, and compassion of those reproductive choices if they are only safely available to the wealthy and privileged? As you know, our congregation is gathering remotely for Sunday services during the month of January due to a surge in COVID-19 cases. The reopening task force will continue to evaluate the statistics and data to make plans for future in-person worship experiences. Although our buildings remain under certain restrictions due to the pandemic, our faith community welcomes everyone. As Unitarian Universalists, we have an ethical commitment to serving the most vulnerable, which will guide our ongoing work to continue to deliver excellent online programs which complement our in-person ones. We hope all of you will plug into our Zoom gathering opportunities throughout the week, including Zoom Social Hour after every Sunday service. You can learn more about all that's happening at First Parish by going to our website, uuneedham.org, or by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. To get Zoom links, learn about religious exploration, please sign up for our weekly email newsletter by going to our website and clicking Get Involved Newsletter, or sending your request to office@uuneedham.org. Our sincere hope is that these online connection opportunities will help us stay safe during this pandemic without losing much of the spiritual, emotional, and social closeness that we treasure in our faith community. If you're watching this service live from outside the church, please take a moment to say hello in the chat. And again, welcome.
As we light our chalice, symbol of our faith, we read words from Euro-American Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Dr. Deborah Hafner, former director of the multi-faith organization, the Religious Institute, which advocated for sexual, gender, and reproductive health, education, and justice in faith communities and the wider society. Reverend Dr. Hafner wrote these words specifically for our nationwide UU Reproductive Justice Sunday. You are welcome here. If you are straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, intersexual, demisexual, pansexual, or asexual, or resist labels completely, you are welcome and whole here. If you are transgender, non-binary, genderqueer, or cisgender, you are welcome and whole here. If you're confused about your sexuality, have questions, struggle in an intimate relationship, or struggle because you aren't in one, you are welcome and whole here. If you have had an abortion or an unintended pregnancy, given up a child, had a miscarriage, have AIDS or HIV, struggle with infertility or sexual dysfunction, you are welcome and whole here. If you've been the victim of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, or sexual assault, you are welcome and whole here. If you have made sexual decisions or had behaviors you regret, you are welcome here, and we will help you offer restorative justice and healing. Your sexuality is holy and sacred and an integral part of who you are. You are welcome and whole here. As Unitarian Universalists, we will fight with you, love you, and fight for your rights. We seek to create a world where sexuality and sexual diversity is celebrated with holiness and integrity.
Our opening hymn this morning, Come Sing a Song With Me, was written by activist Carolyn McDade. McDade also wrote the popular UU hymn Spirit of Life and was a member of Arlington Street Church in the 1960s, where she first began songwriting as part of a women's group. Her music was deeply informed by her lifelong activism. So please join us in singing from home our opening hymn this morning, Come Sing a Song With Me. The lyrics can be found in your emailed orders of service.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises the membership of a congregation strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Though we cannot gather in person during this time, we strive to live these promises every day. Please say, along with me from home, the words of our First Parish covenant as they appear on your screen. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
Good morning, everyone. Today we are talking a lot about physical bodies. Each of us has a body that we carry through our life with us wherever we go. It is in this body that we each have our own unique experiences of the world. Some bodies prefer the warmth of summer, and others prefer the cool breath of a winter wind. Some bodies have tongues that like salty, spicy food, while others have tongues that would rather have the sweetness of chocolate cake. Every body is different. And for each of us, our bodies belong only to us. Only we know what feels best for our own bodies. So let's take some time this morning to read a story together about a lovebird named Rissy and the choices she makes for herself. Rissy No Kissies by Katie Howes, illustrated by Jess Engel. "Oh, the nestlings are just darling," cooed Miss Bluebird over tea. "I can see that they like tickles. They like treats, and they like me. Now I wonder if this little one would kiss me on the cheek." "No kissies!" Rissy chirped with a most emphatic squeak. "How surprising!" squawked Miss Bluebird. Then she laughed as if amused. "We know lovebirds all love kisses. I think Rissy is confused." Rissy's mama kissed her brothers as she tucked them in the nest. Rissy's sister kissed her stuffy as she snuggled down to rest. Rissy's daddy smoothed her feathers and he puckered up his beak. "No kissies!" Rissy chirruped with a most emphatic squeak. "Has she caught a germ?" Dad wondered, very worried for his chick. "We know lovebirds all love kisses. I think Rissy's getting sick." Rissy tumbled with her brothers, then she roughhoused with her sis. Bumped her noggin, ouch! And Grandma tried to soothe her with a kiss. "I will kiss it, make it better." Grandma leaned to take a peek. "No kissies," Rissy chirruped with a most emphatic squeak. "You should teach that girl some manners," Grandma Lovebird briskly cooed. "We know lovebirds all love kisses. I think Rissy's being rude." In the mornings, Rissy rushed to class to claim her favorite spot on the rug between two friendly chicks who smiled and sang a lot. Every day they scooted nearer. They grew closer every week. Till, "No kissies!" Rissy chirruped with a most emphatic squeak. Rissy's new friends felt rejected, flapped and fussed and made a scene. "We know lovebirds all love kisses. We think Rissy's being mean." "Am I mean, Mom?" Rissy wondered. "Or confused or rude or sick? Are you certain I'm a lovebird? Are you sure that I'm your chick? Kissies make my tummy icky. I feel worried, weird, and wrong. If I can't show love with kissies, then I'll never quite belong." "Oh, my Rissy," said her mother, "there is nothing wrong with you. While it's true you don't like kisses, you're a lovebird through and through. Your body and your heart are yours, and you choose how to share. You get to pick the ways you want to show us that you care." Reassured now, Rissy spoke up, for she had some things to say. "Yes, I love you all," she chirruped, "but I'll show it my own way. Some birds share their love with kissies, but they're not my favorite things. I like singing songs together, sitting close and holding wings. I see love in cards and cookies, flying flips and sky-high hugs. With no kissies to upset me, I feel safe and warm and snug." From then on, when Rissy played with friends or when she bumped her head, when her heart was feeling oh so full, or when she went to bed, she gave feather fives and nuzzles, and she shared snuggles cheek to cheek. "I'm a lovebird," Rissy chirruped, with a most emphatic squeak. Sometimes it can feel difficult to tell people no when they want to hug or kiss us, but we don't want that. But your body belongs only to you, and you get to tell other people what you do and don't want to do with it. If you don't like to hug, maybe you can instead suggest a high five or a wave or even a secret handshake. And we can make it our own practice before we touch other people to ask them if they want the hug or high five we are offering. When we ask for consent for the things we do with our bodies, we are treating each other with the worth and dignity that we all deserve. So this week, think about ways that you can ask for consent and even take some time to think about what feels good for your own body, and practice telling other people what touch is okay and what touch is not okay for you. Together, we can make this world a place that cares about consent and is more loving than we could ever imagine. I'm excited to make this world possible with all of you. Ashe, Amen, and blessed be.
It is now time to share with one another our joys and concerns from the past week. These joys and concerns were submitted to me at internminister@uuneedham.org by the Thursday before the service at midnight. If you did not submit a candle but would like to share with the community this morning, you are invited to enter your message into the chat box. As our service is live streamed to YouTube, we cannot guarantee that your joys, concerns, sorrows, or milestones will stay within the First Parish community, but you are always welcome to reach out to Reverend Katie, myself, or the Pastoral Care Associate of the Week, whose name is included in your emailed order of service, for pastoral care or to share more privately. If you're missing hearing each other's voices during this beloved ritual, may this also serve as a reminder to reach out to one another after the service. May this beloved community be sustained by your creativity and care for each other during this time. Our first candle this morning is a candle of concern from Suzanne Pelton for Leslie Pelton, Peter Nickel, and Aiden, Ella, and Isa. Peter is in hospice because his brain cancer has grown and he can no longer control his body. Leslie has provided caring love, as have Peter's 3 children. The family were members of our church until they moved to Concord. Suzanne appreciates your prayers for the Nickel family. Our next candle is a candle of sorrow from the First Parish staff team over the horrific hostage situation at the congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas, earlier this week. We reach out in love and solidarity to the survivors and community in Colleyville impacted by this act of hate, and as the UUA press release said, the Jewish community within and without Unitarian Universalism, recommitting ourselves to combating anti-Semitism and ideologies based on hate wherever we find them. Our next candle is a candle of both relief and concern from Tabby Rapolt and Tara Rivard. First, to celebrate that Rhiannon is just about fully recovered from COVID, and that while the rest of the Rivard family now has it, none of them, especially Elwyn, has needed medical care. Tara is sad that Shayla seems to be experiencing loss of taste and smell. Vaccines do help, though, and they're hopeful they all should be better by the end of next week. Our next and final candle this morning is another candle of sorrow from the First Parish staff team. For all those affected on the Pacific island of Tonga from the volcanic eruption this week. For the 3 and possibly more dead, all the settlements that were destroyed, and all the rebuilding that begins now. Our hearts go out to this community devastated by the largest volcanic eruption the world has seen in 30 years.
For all the joys and sorrows that we still hold in our hearts, and in acknowledging the prayers of our neighbors near and far, we light a final candle. May the peace in this sanctuary be felt too in each of your homes, as we remember that even though apart, we are still deeply connected. Amen.
Will you join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation with these words recommended through the UU Reproductive Justice Sunday materials from Reverend M. Barclay, the first non-binary person ordained in the United Methodist Church. Together we hold their words in our hearts. God is not a judge who sits at a distance, shaking his finger at us about divine rules and regulations. God is within, like a whisper, like a question, like a knowing and a rising. God lures us towards each other, towards collective flourishing, towards power growing from the margins, towards our roots deep in the earth. God pulls us in every direction that serves love and life, and sometimes that direction is abortion. When a woman or a trans man or a non-binary person with a uterus becomes pregnant and must decide how best to foster life, their own and that of their family, and that of this earth breaking under our burdens, God knows for many there are such few choices available in this racist, classist, cis-sexist system. The God of the fringes, the impoverished, the oppressed, condemns every form of coercion and every act of control over the bodies of those who ask all the right questions of life and autonomy and futures and collective well-being under all the wrong systems that abandon and judge and isolate and weigh down. Let us not grow weary in claiming our power, in professing and practicing our solidarity, in sharing our resources, and in following the one who from the margins cries, "Come and follow." Amen. Please join us now in singing from home our meditative hymn this morning, How Could Anyone? The lyrics and music will appear on your screens.
This congregation has been supported by the volunteered time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. This is the time in our service when we, the modern stewards of the church, offer what we can to build and sustain the congregation and the world we envision. For our special Reproductive Justice Sunday service, our entire offering collection will go to Sister Song. Sister Song is a Southern-based national membership organization formed in 1997 by 16 organizations of women of color from 4 mini-communities, Native American, African American, Latina, and Asian American, who recognize that they have the right and responsibility to represent themselves and their communities and the equally compelling need to advance the perspectives and needs of women of color. Sister Song's purpose is to build an effective network of individuals and organizations to improve institutional policies and systems that impact the reproductive lives of marginalized communities. Our national denomination, the Unitarian Universalist Association, is a formal partner with Sister Song for reproductive justice advocacy. To donate to today's offering, you can use one of 3 different methods. You can use our text-to-give program through the number 73256 with the exact wording of UNISON space plate or pledge 22 space $sign and the amount you want to give. You can mail a check to First Parish at 23 Dedham Avenue, or you can make a donation through our website, uunedham.org, and select Donate Now under the Giving box. Whichever way, remember to specify whether your donation is meant for the plate collection or for your annual pledge. Thank you for everything you are able to give to help support and sustain this congregation and the vital work of our community partners. Please take these next few moments to give what you can and know that it will be gratefully received. We're also grateful to Barbara Ridge for this week's flowers in loving memory of her husband, Scott Muldoon, on his birthday.
Some folks believe a life begins when egg meets sperm and want to force all pregnant women to carry to term, but their actions point to something that you wouldn't expect, that they think kids only matter when they're not born yet. They'll make sure family leave and childcare funding fails, take away their parents at the border and jail. Kids beg for climate action under crippling debt, while you show them they only matter when they're not born yet. If abortion was the issue, contraception would reduce it, whoa. But wouldn't you know, certain people made it difficult for everyone to use it, whoa. Publicly shame them if they can't afford lunch, refuse to keep schools safe from COVID or guns. For once, I wish their actions would disprove what I've said, that they think kids only matter when they're not born yet.
Our first reading this morning is from modern Jewish American writer and activist Marge Piercy, recommended for our service from one of our first parishioners. This is her poem, Right to Life. A woman is not a pear tree, thrusting her fruit into mindless fecundity into the world. Even pear trees bear heavily one year and rest and grow the next. An orchard gone wild drops few warm rotting fruit in the grass, but the trees stretch high and wiry, gifting the birds 40 feet up among inch-long thorns broken atavistically from the smooth wood. A woman is not a basket you place your buns in to keep them warm, not a brood hen you can slip duck eggs under, not the purse holding the coins of your descendants till you spend them in wars, not a bank where your genes collect interest and interesting mutations in the tainted rain any more than you are. You plant your corn and harvest it to eat or sell. You put the lamb in the pasture to fatten and haul it in to butcher for chops. You slice the mountain in two for a road and gouge the high plains for coal, and the waters run muddy for miles and years. Fish die, but you do not call them yours unless you wished to eat them. Now you legislate mineral rights in a woman. You lay claim to her pastures for grazing, fields for growing babies like iceberg lettuce. You value children so dearly that none ever go hungry. None weep with no one to tend them when mothers work. None lack fresh fruit, none chew lead or cough to death, and your orphanages are empty. Every noon, the best restaurants serve poor children steaks. At this moment, at 9 o'clock, a partera is performing a tabletop abortion on an unwed mother in Texas who can't get Medicaid any longer. In 5 days, she will die of tetanus, and her little daughter will cry and be taken away. Next door, a husband and wife are sticking pins in the son they did not want. They will explain for hours how wicked he is, how he wants discipline. We are all born of woman. In the rose of the womb, we suckled our mother's blood, and every baby born has a right to love like a seedling to the sun. Every baby born unloved, unwanted is a bill that will come due in 20 years with interest, an anger that must find a target, a pain that will beget pain. A decade downstream, a child screams, a woman falls, a synagogue is torched, a firing squad summoned, a button is pushed, and the world burns. I will choose what enters me, what becomes flesh of my flesh. Without choice, no politics, no ethics lives. I am not your cornfield, not your uranium mine, not your calf for fattening, not your cow for milking. You may not use me as your factory. Priests and legislators do not hold shares in my womb or my mind. This is my body. If I give it to you, I want it back. My life is a non-negotiable demand. Here ends our reading.
I'm honored and humbled to share with you 4 testimonials written by First Parish members who have advocated for abortion access or accessed abortion services. Linda Davis shares, Yet again, a contingent of Needhamites head into South Station for another all-night train ride to D.C. Would the issues requiring our protest presence ever end? Obviously not. I recall being in Washington with hordes of people and signs, some of which were attached to pet dogs on that 1992 day, all marching with such dedication since women's rights, and too often their lives, were at stake. The symbol seen repeatedly was that of a rusty coat hanger. Someone declared that Barbara Bush probably was a pro-choice person, but that politically George couldn't endorse such a nonsensical reality. We spent the day walking the mall with thousands, listening to speeches and supporting those who courageously were speaking truth to power again. We could not have dreamed that 30 years from that day, the court would be so close to overturning Roe v. Wade. Linda continues, I've written to our youth alum Zoe Bailey with thanks and encouragement for her involvement in the movement. It's heartening to see her generation becoming the activists now when we can only lobby and financially support NARAL, Planned Parenthood, and such. I used to escort women to the clinics past the hecklers, but now it is the turn of the young people. May they succeed. Susan McGarvey shares, I have demonstrated for reproductive rights 3 times. I went to marches in D.C. twice, once around 1990 when my daughter Debbie was in college and met me there, once in 2004 with Linda Davis and Ron Shepard, and most recently for the Roe Act with Sally Fritchie and Carolyn Lines. My adult thinking was influenced by the women's movement. I have always felt strongly that the decision should be in the hands of a woman in consultation with her doctor. Jean Rawson shares, I am the youngest of 9 children from a Roman Catholic family. As an adult, my mother had several health issues and was always in and out of the hospital. I remember hearing a conversation story once that after having my brother Don, the 7th child, my mother was told by her doctor that for her personal health safety, she shouldn't have any more children. I also heard that the Catholic Church forbade her from using any type of birth control. Consequently, every pregnancy following that advice was considered high risk and put her life in jeopardy. My eldest sister, now 79, had an abortion just out of high school. Because it was illegal and not a talked-about practice at the time, she remembers traveling by train to New York and staying in a cockroach-infested hotel room. The following morning, she traveled to a home where she was led to a back room where the woman messed around, and then she was told to go home. The following morning, back in her apartment, my sister aborted the baby. She bled so much that she ended up calling an ambulance and was brought to a local hospital where a D&C was performed. I also have someone near and dear to me confess she was raped at a frat house on the campus of her college. If that rape had resulted in a pregnancy, it would have destroyed her. Jean continues, I feel strongly that the right to choose what happens to our bodies should not fall under any government restrictions, where the right to choose what happens to our bodies should be dictated by law. Nor should the control of our healthcare choices, such as access to birth control, be restricted by the church or government leaders. It has been proven that access to organizations like Planned Parenthood has reduced the incidence of pregnancy through access to health education, contraceptives, and medical care. I am a strong proponent of Planned Parenthood and have supported them with donations to further their program through education and healthcare for individuals who are faced with tough choices based on socioeconomic issues, abuse, and stigma. I will always be an advocate for making our voice heard and protecting individuals who choose to do what is personally best for them in their circumstances. And finally, a first parishioner anonymously shared her story with me, and I summarize it here. This story happens all the time, and I ask you to please listen with an open mind and take out any judgment. When I was growing up, my home was a scary place. My father was physically and emotionally abusive toward my mother and me. In high school, I would escape out my bedroom window at night and go to my boyfriend's house to sleep there with him. He comforted me and gave me a little bit of peace. I got pregnant when I was 16. My boyfriend and I knew we shouldn't have a child, so we went together to the local clinic. Because I was 16, they wouldn't perform an abortion without parental permission. In fact, in Massachusetts, this requirement for parental permission was only lifted in December 2020 with the passage of the Roe Act. So I had to tell my abusive father that I was pregnant and wanted an abortion. He, my mother, and a counselor all made me feel very guilty about my decision, and someone at my school found out and told everyone else. It was horrible. But I was able to get a safe abortion and eventually make a better life for myself and the children I would eventually have. This story happens all the time, and I ask you to take out any judgment. Here ends our testimonials.
Our second reading this morning comes from modern queer Black writer, doula, and activist, Adrienne Marie Brown. What they do to the earth, they do to our bodies. They press their filth into the crevice, and when somehow still we make it holy, they take the miracle for granted. Knowing all possible life is sacred, knowing what a life needs, we decide what love would have us do. They demand we bring children into this world amongst them, amongst men fighting each other to the death. We know the labor of sustaining a whole life, so we will have to protect these precious babies from them as they starve, displace, risk, infect, molest, rape, incarcerate, and murder that which they could never carry. They want us to bear it. In spite of what we know from within, there are so many lives lived in untenable crisis because we hear the no, but they won't listen. And what they do to the earth, they do to our bodies. And this is so important. What the earth can do, so can we. We are the earth. We are the earth. We can swallow with tongues of flame, rage down from the sky in precise and dizzying destruction. Shake the foundation back into a chaos of stone. Strip the bull to the bone. Unleash this creation fury, which cannot be contained or controlled. We know every choice in this context is brave. Don't make us weep floods when your house is on fire if we can't decide who to save. Here ends our reading.
2.5 years ago, in the before times, I put on my clergy formal wear and drove over to Needham Town Hall to deliver the opening spiritual guidance to the gathered town meeting representatives. I was feeling a sort of nervy energy because what I had prepared was a short talk on the terrible history of enslavement in Needham, history that was just being uncovered at the time by our church and Dr. Gloria Grice at the Needham History Center. I wouldn't say I was feeling nervous per se, more amped up in case I had to argue with someone about the reality of this history. But the fight I had that evening was not the fight I had prepared for. As I walked up the steps into town hall, a woman saw my clergy collar and happily approached me with a pamphlet. As a public figure and representative of the First Parish community, I try to offer an open heart and ear to anyone who speaks to me, but my face betrayed me as I reacted to her pamphlet and her words. It was anti-abortion propaganda targeting our state representative, Denise Garlick, for her supportive stance on the Roe Act that, as mentioned in our testimonials, would remove certain restrictions on abortion access in our state. I think it went something like this. Oh, no, I don't want that. She was so angry and said something like, I would think you, clergy person, would want to stop these murders. But instead, I reported her presence to town officials inside, and she was asked to leave the premises. Somewhere between 1/4 to 1/3 of American women will have an abortion. And some anti-choice activists also consider common hormonal and emergency contraceptives to be abortive, which accounts for at least another 1/4 to half of American women, including myself. I could not find abortion statistics for trans and non-binary people who can become pregnant, but one 2017 study said hundreds of trans and genderqueer people had had abortions that year. Though I have not needed an abortion, I know and love people who have, as we all do, whether we know it or not. Our former ministerial intern, Reverend Sally Fritchie, preached in a recent sermon at her new church, "These are the bodies, the health, the lives of people we know, people we love and rely on." And she said, being pro-choice is a moral, religious, faithful stance despite the dominant religious voices that are against abortion. As queer Euro-American UU minister, Reverend Darcy Baxter wrote for our denominational magazine, the UU World, about her time as a counselor for an abortion hotline, "I did not think twice about sending the caller to the closest UU congregation. I did not think twice because church was the only place my parents could send me to get a high-quality, comprehensive sexuality education. I did not think twice because while I was growing up, my minister told stories about being part of the clergy consultation service on abortion, a pre-Roe v. Wade network of 3,000 Protestant and Jewish clergy who connected women with safe abortion providers. I did not think twice because Unitarian Universalists, Jews, and Buddhists have been even more supportive of legal abortion than those who identify as religiously unaffiliated. I did not think twice because the Roe v. Wade legal case was forged in the basement of the First Unitarian Church of Dallas, Texas." In short, it's our Unitarian Universalist moral, religious, faithful stance to be pro-choice because we believe in every person's worth and dignity, their freedom, their bodily autonomy, and we understand that pregnancy is not always easy or survivable for the pregnant person nor the fetus. We only have so much time together this morning, but I certainly encourage you, if you haven't learned about it already, to look up books like Bad Faith and What's the Matter with Kansas to learn about how explicitly and closely linked anti-integration politics are with the very recent conservative Christian theology against contraceptives and abortion. As my sermon title implies, when we talk about reproductive justice, though, we are including and going beyond abortion access. Because beyond abortion being a faithful healthcare decision, we must ask, why do people seek abortions? In 2013, our own local hospital, Boston Medical Center, analyzed survey data from nearly 1,000 American women seeking an abortion about why they were doing so. The predominant reasons included financial reasons, 40%, timing, 36%, partner-related reasons, including domestic violence, 31%, and the need to focus on other children, 29%. 20% of respondents also said they weren't emotionally ready and that a baby would interfere with their future plans and goals. Unsurprisingly, the authors of this BMC study, Dr. Antonia Briggs, Heather Gould, and Dr. Diana Green Foster, experts in social psychology, public health, and demography, respectively, they found that the further along a pregnancy was, the more likely fetal health was cited as a reason for abortion. It almost goes without saying that these are issues that are interrelated, that the majority of these women cited multiple reasons for seeking an abortion. The rates of unplanned pregnancies and those seeking abortions point to much larger issues, including and beyond abortion access. The term reproductive justice is not interchangeable with reproductive health or reproductive freedom. The term reproductive justice was coined by women of color in 1994, and it centers the experiences of BIPOC women and other marginalized folks who can become pregnant. Reproductive justice addresses those overlapping root causes for the need for abortions. As Black lawyer, scholar, and activist Kimberly Crenshaw first wrote, we need an intersectional lens to address the obstacles to Planned Parenthood and happy family life in our country. In a Zoom workshop session for Unitarian Universalist religious professionals earlier this month, Black lawyer and movement building director for the If, When, How organization, Gerald Hayes, shared with us the ethics of the reproductive justice movement. Yes, it includes the rights to bodily autonomy and to not have children, but reproductive justice also includes the right to have children and to parent the children you have in a safe and healthy environment. As Hayes illuminated for us, reproductive justice, yes, means protecting and expanding abortion access, and it also means addressing many other systemic societal problems. Food deserts, the housing crisis, educational disparities, sex educational disparities, unlivable wages, lack of safety net programs, unreliable and inaccessible transportation, state-based and domestic violence, inequitable health care, including lack of access of single people and queer couples to assistive reproductive technology. I pause for a moment of gratitude to our own member, Jim Sargent, for upgrading the UUA's health insurance policy to include coverage for this for all people. And then there's racism and cissexism and the climate emergency. The problems of Planned Parenthood and a livable, happy family existence in our nation are deeply rooted. Again, as Unitarian Universalists, we have an ethical commitment to bodily autonomy, and our faith commits us to working toward economic justice, climate justice, racial justice, gender justice, queer justice. And the need for faithful, pro-choice, reproductive justice-minded voices is dire. Our national denomination promoted this nationwide Reproductive Justice Sunday service because of severe threats to abortion access stemming from decades of anti-choice advocacy and specifically from the new restrictive Texan law. So what can we do for reproductive justice today? Yes, we must keep advocating for abortion as both an essential healthcare practice and a moral choice for pregnant people. Yes, we must keep advocating for proper sex ed and access to contraceptives. Yes, we must keep advocating for reasonable parental leave and affordable health care, affordable child care. And we need to end discrimination and violence against women and LGBTQ people, especially BIPOC women and LGBTQ people. And we need stronger social safety nets and solutions to eliminate housing and food insecurity. And we need livable wages and health care for all. And we need a global movement to address the climate emergency. Yes, and yes, and yes, and. If you're interested in getting more involved in the national reproductive justice movement, you can come talk to me, write to me about opportunities through our UUA, the Religion and Repro Learning Center, and this week's sacred online gathering for people of faith advocating for reproductive justice. And if you're already involved in work for reproductive justice, climate justice, racial justice, LGBTQ justice, economic justice, thank you. Your work matters and saves lives. Let's keep at it. Blessed be, and amen.
I was done at 16, showing up for class. I was out there in the ring, learning how to give some sass. I was done at 16, using my mama's keys. It was all on me, it was all on me. Weren't no free rides, weren't no IOUs. I pulled my weight, yes, I paid my dues, and I showed up to enlist on the first day of recruits. How about you? Oh, how about you? I am my brother's keeper every chance I can. I pay my taxes like any working man. I feel I've earned my right to choose. You don't get to play God, man. I do. You don't get to play God, man. I do. You get to run the world in your special way. You get much more than your say. Government, religion, it's all just patriarchy. I must insist you leave this one thing to me. Just leave this one thing to me. Just one thing that a man needs to be truly free. This is the modern world, that thing is money. But there are two things that a woman needs: control over her own body. Yes, I pay the price on top of everything. Each month a bill, each month a reckoning, and each seed that dies I cry and bleed. So you can't tell me, no, you can't tell me. I am a soldier, it's my blood that flows. I'd give my life so that the street can grow. You don't know creation like I know, so you can't tell me, no, you can't tell me. You can't tell me, no, you can't tell me. You get to run the world in your special way. You get much more than your say. Government, religion, it's all just patriarchy. I must insist you leave this one thing to me. Just leave this one thing to me. I am my brother's keeper every chance I get, and I pay my taxes like any working man. And I feel I've earned my right to choose. You don't get to play God, man. I do. You don't get to play God, man. I do. You don't get to play God, man. I do.
Many thanks to our guest organist, Jameson Thompson, and to all those who offered testimonials and suggestions for our Reproductive Justice Sunday service. Please remember that you are all welcome to a Zoom social hour after this service has ended, which will include a congregational photo today. Remember to carefully read your bell notes to know about everything happening at First Parish, especially as we respond to the Omicron variant. You can sign up for our weekly e-newsletter by clicking on Subscribe to Newsletter on our website, uunedum.org. You're also welcome to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Coming up this week on Zoom, there's the At My Neighbor's Table session about having challenging conversations happening tonight. We have Lunch Bunch on Wednesday, Writers Escape Vespers, Meditation Ministry, and the Action Book Club on Thursday, and Creative Escapes on Friday, and our Sunday night book group next Sunday. Outdoors, there's the weekly Fridays for Future vigil at the Needham Town Common. We always extinguish our chalice with words promising to carry its flame in our hearts until we are together again, no matter how long it is until we are all together again. Please join me from home in saying those words written by Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Elizabeth Sally Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing hymn this morning, We Are a Gentle, Angry People, was written by modern Euro-American activist and singer-songwriter Holly Near. This song was composed in response to the murder of San Francisco City Supervisor Harvey Milk in 1978. It was adopted for a time as the anthem of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Please join us in singing from home our closing hymn this morning, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. The lyrics can be found in your emailed orders of service.
We are all in this together.
As we close our worship today, I offer you this benediction from modern Filipina-American UU minister, Reverend Joan Javier Duval, adapted from her reflection on her own abortion due to an incomplete miscarriage. Our faith loudly declares that life is sacred and that all people, including those whose bodies carry pregnancies, have sacred and holy agency and sovereignty over their bodies. Our faith loudly declares, and other faith traditions do as well, that all people have the inherent right to make ethical and moral decisions about their bodies, as painful as these decisions are at times. Our faith asserts that the direct personal experience of our own lives is a sacred source of authority in choosing our own path and future. It is bad theology to claim a concern for the sanctity of life on the one hand while ignoring children dying at the border, trans women murdered on the streets, and the continued defunding of public education and fossil fuel-induced ecological catastrophe on the other. We all want freedom. The freedom to live and love without fear or condemnation, the freedom to be well and whole in body, mind, and spirit, the freedom to flourish in the brief but grace-filled lives we are so blessed to have on this precious earth. Reproductive justice is a necessary part of the wellness and flourishing we all desire and that we all deserve. May we work to bring justice to all. Our service begins when our service ends. Blessed be, and amen.